about the topic?
Very good show.
Hey, girl.
Thank you.
I definitely want to see what you thought about this. And basically talk about African culture and civilization and stuff.
One of the things I have to say, and let me just take you guys off speaker real quick. Okay, can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Actually, there's a couple of things I wanted to say in reference to, I know earlier when you were talking about, and you guess, what is your name? Because I want to refer to you by your name.
You can call me Shat. I'm Shat Sauvage in the chat room.
Okay. All right. Well, actually, I'm not in the chat room. I'm just listening. But, one of the things you mentioned earlier in reference to, him wanting to have control and getting permission from you to be able to control him. One of the things I have to say, and especially because we teach on the destruction of black civilization, is that a lot of times our black men, feel very much inferior to white men for the simple fact that they have been called everything else but men, for one.
Mm-hmm.
They have been, and it's like, it's like they have to prove a point that they're men. During slavery days, they were called boys. They were never called men. But one of the things that I disagreed with is the fact that we do know the history of our people. We do know that white people thought a lot of things from our people. And, it's such as the diamonds, as Alexyss said earlier, the gold. So at the end of the day, I really don't think that white people are in control of anything. And I always teach to stop saying that because you guys are really not.
Right. I guess, for me, I guess I think about it sociologically, and I just understand that this society is run by institutions, and then when I look at who manages those institutions, I can't help but to ignore that in the United States, one country of many, you do have more white people in positions of power. And while that doesn't necessarily mean it must be that way, it's just I just acknowledge that at this particular social juncture, that is the situation. And as a white person, I have to acknowledge that because, well, I want to be a responsible citizen. I, therefore, want to acknowledge that, yes, I am granted rights and opportunities other people are not granted because people who think they look like me are in positions of power.
Mm-hmm.
And that, let's be honest. I mean, if I were African American, I do not know if I would have attended college. I do not know if I would have had the support network to attend college. I do not know if, other opportunities would have been made available. I probably would not have been hired for certain jobs. Mm-hmm. And then that's just a reality. And
well, actually, one of the things I always say, one of the things I refuse to say is that I'm oppressed. And I even teach that, especially when I teach about African culture. And I try to teach my people to stop saying that they're oppressed because they're no longer oppressed. You see what I'm saying? Black people have a lot of power. There was a time when we did run things. And, one of the things we have to realize is that white people are the minority and they're not the majority. Now, in the United States, yes, you may have a certain amount of white people that have, I would say, I wouldn't say so much power, because the only one that has power to me are the ancestors that have power and Mother Nature. You see what I'm saying? Mother Nature can come wipe everybody out. So that's who has power to me. I don't see white people having power because
right.
Go ahead.
No, I agree with you. I guess. But for me, I also feel that when one understands one's social situation, that's empowering, meaning, it's an issue of consciousness for me, meaning for me to understand the operations of my society, I then can learn how to change them. But I first have to know them in order to change them. And I guess, I do agree with you that there's a point where the language of oppression can just, enact a self-fulfilling prophecy, and that we do need to create a different type of knowledge and a different type of language to address the situation. But at the same time, we have to understand the situation in which, we're presently stuck because if we want to change it, we have to know how it works.
Well, one of the things you have to realize, and I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, you know, it's a lot of our culture was stripped away from us, and that's why we teach what we teach, because we're giving our people our culture, their culture back, because originally they had the power. We were the ones who created the science. We were the ones who created the math. We were the one who had the gold and the diamond, and it was stolen away from us. But, you know, I wanted to refer to something else that you said, and it was in reference to his psychology. One of the reasons his psychology is the way it is only because it was taught by white people to us, and we have been totally programmed to believe, you know, in such a homosexuality. We were taught that, you know, to believe certain ways. I always say we were brainwashed, and we have to get actually deprogrammed, because a lot of our ways that we think, such as the man that you were dealing with, is thinking that way because it was taught from white people.
Right. And I agree with that. I mean, I do agree that, you know, the whole, I mean, the fact that you and I are speaking a certain language that is English is already a symptom of power, and that we, you know, and that knowledge is in itself, you know, racist, and that knowledge is in itself something that has to be changed in order for other changes to occur. I guess I admit, you know, I do read a lot of psychoanalysis. I understand its limitations, but I guess I also understand that it's a major discourse that has shaped human beings, and I do understand that it has its historical limits. It's not necessarily universal. It's just an idea. But to me, I do feel that, for me personally, it helps. But regarding the fact that, yes, homosexuality is a recent invention, you know, I do think that we need to think of that it is a product of the late 19th century. It's not universal. Many people would like to say that being gay is universal. It's not universal. To me, it's a product of capitalism, because if you live in a communist country, there are no gay people. It doesn't exist. But it's a product of capitalism. It's a product of the late 19th century, and we need to think historically about this, meaning it's a recent phenomenon. And what does it mean? And I do think that you are right to say that homosexuality is a product of certain white forms of knowledge, and that we need to be critical of it in that respect. And I will say that as a white gay man, because I feel that if you want to be critical of sexuality, you do have to think about it historically. You do have to think about how our sexuality is contingent upon certain social forces. And so I agree with you on that count.
Well,
I don't know if I answered your question.
Other people that dealt with African civilization and culture, and they say that they have found homosexuality in different parts of Africa and black culture before white folks came and invaded.
But did people call themselves homosexual? Was it a legal category?
From what they told me, yeah, that there were homosexual practices, women on women and men on men, and bisexuality.
Well, the reason that was because the Greeks brought it into the African civilization. The Greeks brought it in. So, I mean, I'm just going by from what I studied. From what I studied and looking back at it.
From what I was talking to, other black people also studied. They're saying that it was no white people around yet, and there were black people practicing it among themselves.
No,
I guess, you know, my question, though, Alexyss, is, you know, people who call themselves gay today call themselves gay. They call it an identity. You know, it's an identity. This is who I am. Whereas if you just had sex with someone of the same sex, it didn't mean you were anything. You just, you know, did that on occasion. And I think, you know, when I say gay is a recent invention, the whole notion that it's an identity, that it defines you, that's recent, I think, because, you know, people were having, you know, same-sex relations for a long time, but it didn't have the social weight it seems to have right now. I guess that's what I'm trying to argue.
I'm getting ready to wrap this up, because I'm seeing that Blog Talk has taken down all of my shows on here.
Again?
Again, so I need somebody to set up a page for me immediately. Because all
I got you.
are gone, so I don't know if anybody will be able to download this show. I've been trying. I'm not able to download this show. They already closed it and put it in the archive, and when I keep trying to upload or trying to download it, it won't come up. So they basically erased the whole page.
Really?
Of Firestorm Oracles, it's gone.
It's gone. And,
the whole page, your whole page?
All of my shows are gone. They took them all down.
Alexyss, why does this happen to you?